I would just like to say I love being an entrepreneur. If you're thinking about it and you've always wanted to do it, don't let anything hold you back. It's really just hard work and time, but it's worth every ounce of effort that you put towards it. And there's nothing more fulfilling. It's a great feeling, and you got to go for it.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset, everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer. Be sure to head over to clicksandbricksacademy.com so you can access all the resources to start improving your sales today.
Today I'm talking with Kelly. She is the co-founder and the co-owner of WorkWithYourHandz Recruiting Employment Services. How are you doing today, Kelly?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Before we jump into what is Work With Your Hands, can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you got to this Work With Your Hands concept that you and your friend founded together?
Well, my name is Kelly Presgrave. I live in Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. And I am the mother of three beautiful children that are now almost grown. I started a business, Work With Your Hands, with my business partner about 3.5 years ago. And we came up with the concept when we were together on a business trip with our spouses, and it just really evolved naturally. We both are love people. We love talking to people, and we know the industry that our spouses are in, and it was just a natural evolution to start a recruiting company, and it's been really fun ever since then.
Wonderful. So Work With Your Hands is obviously you've got bigger aspirations than where you're currently at, but right now you specialize in specifically residential service providers. Is that pretty accurate?
Correct.
Or clear that up. So say it how you actually do it so I don't butcher what you actually do.
Okay, so we are a boutique agency that does direct placement. So we don't do any staffing, so no temp to hire, nothing like that. It's full-time direct or part-time, but it's direct placement. Our niche is really in residential service companies who need plumbers, HVAC techs, electricians, management, salespeople, any apprentices, things like that. That's our main vertical. We do have some construction clients that look for labor, mechanics, and different things like that as well. We do this year we will expand that vertical of construction, but our main what we mainly do is work with residential service companies, and we love working with those companies. We have clients nationwide, coast to coast and everywhere in between.
Okay. And you kind of chose that niche because that's what you and your partners, both your husbands, were in that industry.
Yeah, it just came naturally. That was not I've always wanted to start my own business. I've had many ideas that failed, many ideas that took a lot of startup costs, or they had other barriers to entry if they were super technical, things like that. So this was not my first idea, but it was the first idea that had the low cost to entry. It was doable. It was, you could learn it pretty easily. So I did take a couple of classes from Cornell to learn recruiting, and it was super fun. So it was just one of those things that it just became really easy. There was nothing stopping us from doing it like the other things I'd thought of.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about your history before we jumped on the show. So just to summarize, 17 years ago, you left the telecom industry, and now you're a stay-at-home mother, and you did that for 17 years, correct?
Correct.
Now, when it was time to go, the kids are out or grown, at least mostly grown, and they're at least self-sufficient. You had to make a decision. Am I going to go back to work or start a business? Was that a conscious decision, or did this really just embrace and flow for you?
No, it was a conscious decision. I was looking for something. The kids definitely, when I was stay-at-home mom, I was doing it 100%. I'm the kind of person that anything I do, I not do overboard, but I really get into it. I'm laser focused. I was very much like that when I was a stay-at-home mom, room mom, things like that. But I felt like when the kids didn't need me anymore, some had gone to college, some were still in high school, but they were getting there. And I just wanted something else to do. It was, I've always felt like I used my brain. I always read a lot. I've always stayed on top of things, but I was really, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I just felt like now's the time. It was, a lot of things in life happened because of the timing. And the timing was perfect.
Okay. So you knew, well, you had to make the decision, and this kind of happened more naturally. Mm-hmm. If this wouldn't have happened, do you think you would have went back to kind of a corporate America job, or just stay where you were?
No, I would have found something to do. I would have started my own business somehow.
It may not have been this one, but something would have ended up happening. I think that's just in some of our blood, that we have to do something. Thank you so much for making a decision to stay at home with your family and playing that role. I think it's widely undervalued in our country today of what stay-at-home mothers do. And I think that investment in your kids is going to really help our future as a whole. And I know it's not easy to do, because my wife and I made the same decision, and there are its own challenges in that. So thank you so much for making that decision and moving forward. Now, with that being said, we're in a time in 2022 where we're still in this, what they're calling the Great Resignation, right? And I believe that there's a lot of good that happens with that, but there's also a lot of bad that happens with that. The good is that I think more people are staying at home and spending more quality family time together, but it's really hurting business. What does the Great Resignation mean to a company like you, where you're recruiting people to work? And at least the narrative in the country right now is that it's really hard to find people that either are capable of working, or they just don't seem to want to work. How do you feel about that today?
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to that. So there are people, I feel like during the pandemic, we did have we are really recruiting in the trades. So during pandemic, when there was a lot of government subsidies going out, we did see a drop in, people who wanted to work. We saw a drop in applications. We saw a lot of people that were just afraid of COVID, but there were a lot of people out there that were making do with what the government was giving them, and they were fine. So there's that aspect of people just not wanting to work. There's now, I think the Great Resignation is that everyone knows it's a candidate's market. So it's just like if you are, any situation, whether it's that maybe the housing market is really down. If you're looking for housing, you're going to do that because the housing prices are advantageous for you. So right now it's a candidate's market. Candidates know they have the upper hand. If for no other reason, they can go out and get another offer and kick the tires somewhere else, take that offer to their current employer and get more money at their current employer. They may resign because, for a variety of reasons, we've seen a good and bad. So we've seen people who are, for instance, one person he's in a TSA, he's a TSA agent. He decides he wants to be a plumber. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He's resigning, but he's going to a completely different industry. And then we've had someone who was in HVAC sales who made a lot of money doing that. He decides he wants to be an airline pilot. So I think people, for whatever reason, maybe the pandemic just stirred up this, we don't have an infinite amount of time, and do what you want to do. If there's something you're passionate about, don't wait, go do it. If you're in a job that you hate, don't keep doing it. Find something that you love. And if you're with an employer that doesn't value you as an employee, you don't have to be in that job anymore. There are other jobs out there. So you have a lot more freedom than maybe you thought. So we see it, some pros and cons of it.
Right. I really don't like the narrative of these kids today just don't want to work, because I don't find that to be true at all. When I'm talking to people in their 20s and early 30s right now, I think what's really happening is that they're finally realizing that they have other options. That when I was a kid, my highest anxiety was, where am I going to get a job? How am I going to get a job? Who's going to hire me? But today, if you want to work, you can Uber, you can Postmates, you can do a lot of different things, a lot of different options people have available to them, and they can be their unique self and do those jobs. There's a lot of work at home jobs. So I think the employment market is going to be pretty crazy for some time as this new internet 3.0, 2.0 kind of, settles in totally and becomes, long-term a part of our life where this work on demand life lives. But then internet 3.0 is just going to amplify that even more. And people are going to be able to do whatever they want to do. So my gut feeling on the trade services, even the residential trade services, to get somebody to come to your house to do what would simply be really simple work before, it's going to cost you a lot more in the future than it did maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Because I think the only thing you can really do is create great cultures or raise your prices to get people to come in, right? And by raising your prices, you're going to pay your staff a lot more money to do those jobs.
And that's happening anyway, because parts are more expensive. I mean, as a residential service company, they're seeing gas is higher, copper's higher, PVC is higher. Everything they do, the cost to get it's just across the board, everything's higher. And you're right, labor is going to follow that trend right up. So it is going to be passed on to the consumer, I'm sure, at some point, and that's just part of inflation. But yeah, the gig economy, that probably that's a whole different. There's so many factors that went into the resignation that there's a lot going on there. It's not one thing, and I agree. You cannot do a generalization of one demographic or one generation and say that this generation doesn't want to work, because that is absolutely not true.
Right. In some ways, they're more hustlers, right? Because they're getting out and they're creating it on their own. They're not asking anybody for a handout or a paycheck. They're saying, hey, I'm going to go out and create my own thing. They're making their own futures. I think it's great. I love it. As a person, as a business owner, it is a challenge, right? So you primarily help service providers get staffing for their business, and you do this nationwide, correct?
Correct.
If somebody they had a service provider today, plumbing, electric, anything that's residential or even commercial, how would they get in contact with you to have you place employees for them?
They can visit our website, which is www.workwithyourhands, hands has a Z on the end.com. Our phone number is 877-679-8791. You can email me at kelly@workwithyourhands.com. But basically go into our website. We have a contact form on our website. You can fill that out. It goes directly to us. And that would probably be the easiest and fastest way to get a hold of us.
Right. So if you're currently using one of the, ZipRecruiters, Indeed, Monster, any of those services to get employees, Work With Your Hands is another option for you.
Yeah, and we use Indeed, we use ZipRecruiter, we use all those. Those things are things that we use to make our business work. So we use a lot of technology, we use a lot of vendors to make our magic happen behind the scenes. So yeah, anybody who has a residential service company, you need technicians, you need the people in the field, and we can provide those for you.
Right. So I know when I'm hiring an IT professional, I generally, for every 10 interviews, I get one quality candidate that I'm going to make an offer to. What kind of ratio is that in the service industry for residential services? Do you have a number like that, or is it really just kind of hit and miss? Now, I know that, and that was my number 2 years ago. Today, it's more like 50-1. Like I reach out to 50 people to get one good candidate. And do you have a rough number for the service industry? If somebody was going to hire on their own, what's the average? How many people are going to talk to before they find that great employee?
Our funnel, if you will, and this is nationwide for all of our clients, we had over 13,000 applicants last year. We conducted, it was somewhere around like 30, almost 4,000 phone screens, if I have my numbers right. And then we sent over 1,000 people to get 300 who had offers made to them, and 200 of those people made the offer. So if you think about 13,000 people applied to 200 actually got the job, I'm not sure what the math is on that, but it's Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough to find
Right.
the qualified people.
So as a business owner, think about that. 13,000 applicants down to 200 people placed. That's less than 1%
Yeah.
of a turnover. To get a quality candidate, I don't find that number bizarre at all. So if your HR department for a service industry, for a service provider, I mean, outsourcing that labor of the HR and of acquiring staff is, to me, is a no-brainer. Absolute
Right.
no-brainer. Now, we want to help all the service providers out there in the world, regardless if they're doing business with you or not. If you were to give the advice to a service provider today, residential service provider, on just one way they could start getting more revenue if they implemented this process tomorrow, what would that tip be?
That tip would be to, and I think most people know this, but my tip is go with this. Do your verification on the soft skills of the individual. You can train the technical part of it, but you can't train someone always to be articulate, to use their manners, to be able to build a rapport with customers, to like people. You have to like people to want to go into a customer's home and fix their things and be a consultant to them, to see what all you can fix in their house. You want as a service provider, you want to be the first person they call for all their needs. So when you're sending someone in the home and you're vetting them on the phone to see if they work for your company, the number one thing we look for is soft skills. So how are they presenting themselves on the phone? And its experience is kind of second to how they present themselves. So, a tip, if you're on the other side of that, if you're a flip side, if you're a technician, don't answer your phone. Answer your phone professionally. If you have your job out, if you've been applying to jobs, answer the phone like you expect someone to be calling you about that job. And I think service providers, our customers know that. That's what makes it so incredibly hard, because you need the technical piece, but you can train that. But the soft skills are so hard to. That's the meat and potatoes of what you need, and that's really hard to come by.
Absolutely. So if you had a plumber that also had soft skills, when he's on site at that place, why is that? What makes that soft skill important versus somebody that's more introverted that comes in, does the job beautifully, and gets the paperwork signed and then leaves?
Well, just think about it. If you have someone coming in your home, they're fixing the garbage disposal, they're done with the job. Instead of just walking out, they're asking you, what else can I do while I'm here? It's really that, and doing it with a genuine concern and a smile on their face. And, is there anything else I can help you with? And then while they're there, oh, by the way, it takes 25 minutes for my hot water to heat up, or I've had this faucet that actually never turns off, or whatever the case may be. Then while the person's there, they're going and looking and seeing if there's anything else they can fix. It's really important for whether it's a plumber or HVAC tech, but it's for electricians. I mean, think about, can you do an inspection on my home to make sure everything is up to code and there's nothing that's a fire hazard? Those kind of things. I mean, just little things that can make a big difference. A lot of times it's a safety issue. So that would be, the soft skills and building that rapport with the customer, building the trust with the customer, so that you can help them with other needs in their house, is huge.
Absolutely. And that, I think what you're talking about there is extracting more revenue from a client that you already have. It's wildly important. It's something that I missed for a very long time. McDonald's nailed it with, would you like fries with that? If you're a service provider and you have a technician on staff, asking the question that seems so obvious, is there anything else I can help you with, will get you more cash. At that moment, you just made the customer happy. They're the most captive that they can absolutely be, right? You have a really captive audience. You just solved a problem for them. Now it's time to see if they need any more help while you're already there. On your landing page on your website, I see this all the time. People get the sale and they get them to a thank you page. they're going to really pay attention to that thank you page. That's a time to ask them, would you like anything else? Right? It's a very natural progression that a lot of business owners tend to forget about. They think, oh, I got the sale, I did the job, my job is done, I'm on my way. That customer, you've already acquired him, your cost to acquire him is gone. It's a very simple question that will get some percentage of turnaround. I don't know what your percentage will be. It's going to be different for every industry. But if you just implement that one question in everything that you do, is there anything else that you would like? I think every business owner would start seeing additional revenue pulled out from that single process.
It's so easy. And yet, if you are a really introverted person or you're a nervous person around people, you don't have those soft skills, it can be the hardest thing. So it's making sure that who we're sending over for our clients, that they have that, they have the little bit of extrovert. They don't have to be hugely, but at least enough to build a rapport with the customer.
All right. So on Clicks and Bricks, we like to talk about technology, and obviously technology is changing the recruiting world multiple times in the past just 10 years, right? How do you see technology changing your industry specifically in the future?
In the recruiting world, I really see things going where it's going to be a lot easier to do a video interview. So, a lot of times if you've ever interviewed anyone, the difference between hearing them on the phone and seeing them in person. So I think we'll move closer and closer, even in the trade industry where it's really hard to get that, to get people to do a video interview. Candidates are always in the field, they're in their cars, they're on a job, they're not always in a place where they can do it. I think that will become more of the norm, where you just do a video, whether it's, whatever technology you're using, whether it's, a FaceTime, or whether it's you're using an application through, specific to recruiting. I think that's where it's going to go as far as doing the video interviews. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of back end stuff, just like Google knows everything about you. I think there will be a lot more targeted outreach to people based on what is out there in Google and in the land that other companies know about you. And it'll just be a much more targeted approach to those specific people that have certain skills.
You are absolutely correct. More granularity in every industry is going to continue to happen when you're talking about targeting and demographic. It's going to get very, very narrow scope, and they're going to be able to, with psychological tests and all kinds of other things, be able to just narrow down a message for you very, very specifically. I think that's absolutely on the horizon. If it's not already here, I think people are seeing it in multiple ways in a very cheaply deployed way right now with the online cookies and the Facebook Pixel and all these things. But I think those technologies are going to get more and more mature over time to where it's almost not even obvious, right? So I be ready for that, and be as a business owner, be very mindful that these are ways that you're going to get clients. And as a consumer, be very mindful that you're being targeted, right? This is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence when you start talking about something around your Amazon Alexa and your Google Drive and all those things, that you start seeing those ads, right? This is not accident. This was intentional across the board.
As scary as it is.
Wonderful. Before we go, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if somebody wanted to work with you, how would they get in contact with you one more time?
WorkWithYourHandz with a Z.com.
Wonderful. Before we go today, thank you for being on the show. Had a great time. Is there anything you would like to leave the audience with before we go?
I would just like to say, I love being an entrepreneur. If you're thinking about it and you've always wanted to do it, don't let anything hold you back. It's really just hard work and time, but it's worth every ounce of effort that you put towards it. And there's nothing more fulfilling. It's a great feeling, and you got to go for it.
Thank you so much for your time today. Again, if you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. The way you join that community is ask me any question about business or technology. I will send you an absolutely unbiased opinion, no charge at all. Get to work.